What's going on, everybody? We are now live on all the platforms, Facebook being the main one, but all the platforms. This is the live show with Dr. Kojo, and I'm excited to have all y'all here. Um, I'm going to wait for the comments to come in a little bit, and I'm going to talk about our special guest. I'm very excited to have her on, and this is going to be a good show. And I'm going to pull up my stream here so I can just watch myself, make sure we're live. We're good. All right, we're good. All right, let's get it. Alexa, off. It's time to get it. It's time to get it. We have Jamie from Durrell, Texas. Janelle, what's up? Ebony, what's up? Everybody, let me know where you're checking in from, and I'm going to introduce the special guest tonight. We have a really, really good show. And this is the first time that I'm bringing somebody on, so I'm super excited for that. Let me put this down. Hopefully the sound is not too bad. Perfect. I y'all can still hear me. Can y'all still hear me good? Y'all let me know if y'all can still hear me good. Colorado in the house, Palm Bay, Florida, Michigan, Canada, College Station, Texas, Windsor, Michigan, Kansas City. Okay. So Dr. Sasha is also from Kansas City as well. Wisconsin, Atlanta, Florida, Chicago, Virginia, New York, Canada, Utah, Memphis, North Dakota, North Carolina, Southern Oregon, Southern California. So somebody's also from Southern California like me. Utah, Arizona, Chapel Hill. Haley, I appreciate that. All right, okay, so you all know why we're here today. We're here to talk about ADHD and relationships. This is February the 3rd, so we're about 11 days away from Valentine's Day, and we're going to stick with the theme of ADHD relationships. And this is a Valentine's Day edition, so there's so many ways to take the conversation, and I'm just going to let Dr. Sasha talk, and then we'll go from there. But I have a lot of ideas in my head because this is a time of the year that, I think Valentine's Day is like Christmas and Easter, and one of these holidays is so commercialized, so people feel the need to overspend. So this can be a scary time for people who make impulsive decisions. I don't want you buying a $10,000 watch for your person. I mean, unless you have it like that. But I'm going to talk about our special guest today. We have Dr. Sasha Hamdani. She's one of my good friends on TikTok. She's a great person. She's an amazing mother, amazing wife, amazing physician. She's like a wealth of knowledge. And she talks so much about ADHD, and especially when it comes to ADHD in women, which is something that we have to talk about more. So I'm going to bring in Dr. Sasha Hamdani into the stream, and this is my first guest, so I'm excited.
Hi!
How are you doing?
Good. I'm doing so good. Thank you for having me. I'm so honored to be first.
No problem. Yeah, this is something that I started about 2 weeks ago, and I told myself I would do it for like maybe 7 times in a row before I announced it, just to make sure I could be consistent with it. So you are the first guest, and I'm excited because people want to know so much about ADHD and relationships, and I'm so excited. So I'll let the people should know who you are. So I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah. So I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good.
I'm in my pajamas already, and it's 8:00.
Right.
So my name is Dr. Sasha Hamdani. I'm board certified psychiatrist and ADHD clinical specialist. And I personally have ADHD, so I am actively engaged in this topic as well, both from a lived experience and from an academic experience as well.
That's awesome. And where do you post? You post on TikTok, IG?
Yeah, so I'm on TikTok and I'm on Instagram under the Psych Doctor MD. And doctor is spelled DOCTOR MD. And it's still kind of a small channel, but it's growing.
It's growing. It's big. It's getting there. Hundreds of thousands of followers on TikTok. And how many on Instagram?
I think like 120.
That's a lot. That's a lot. 100,000.
It's growing. It's such a cool and fun community on there, and people are just like, I mean, I'm sure you have seen this as well. People are so supportive and engaged, and they, they're just like, you feel like you've built a little family on there, which is like so amazing.
That's exactly how I feel with social media in general, whether it's here on Facebook or the people on YouTube. I feel like and you start to recognize the people. Like I see Lakeisha, like Brittany, like these are people who have come in. And you start to recognize their names, especially on TikTok. Like that's where you can
Yeah,
kind of really like figure out who's following you, why they're following you, Instagram. So it
right.
becomes like its own little family. And for me, like I wish I had this when I was in high school.
Oh my
And
God, I know.
nobody talked about ADHD, so you just were kind of left to figure it out on your own, you know?
Yeah. And nobody talked about it, and then you go through and you recognize, like, things aren't lining up.
Right,
But you more than likely, people are just, like, telling you to, like, brush it aside or work harder, which is like, "Okay, well,
right,
I can't do that."
right,
It's not a question of working harder. It's like I have limitations that make me work in a way that is what is traditionally considered ineffective or inefficient, and it just becomes like in that neurotypical realm of things getting done, it can
mhm,
look like you're being lazy or
right.
dismissive, and it gets really discouraging. That's why
It,
I'm so glad that there are people like you that are breaking stigma all over the place.
I appreciate. I feel like I don't know, like even to just have this conversation with you, to have these people online. I feel
Yeah.
like I feel like we won the lottery. Like we get to talk about something that affects us every day. So we're coming
No.
from more than just the clinical perspective. Like it's our lives, So
Yeah,
like
totally.
we can actually speak from personal experience, which is I think is powerful.
I do too. I do too.
So
And it makes it easy to talk about.
oh, it does. And then sometimes, like, I don't know if you've had this, but like when I talk to patients and I give them tips, I think to myself, I'm like, oh, snap, I'm going to start doing that. I need to start doing that. You
Of
know,
course, all the time.
yeah. I need to start
All
waking
the
up
time.
early, go to the gym, eating breakfast, going for a walk, all the things that I preach. I'm like, I need to start doing this. Like, it would make sense that I would do the same thing as well.
I know. There's so many rational and usable tips that really we should employ and
Right.
use. But don't you feel like being on social media and actually deep diving and learning and trying to give usable data for people and tangible tools for them to use, I feel like that's really helpful for me because it's kind of like
Yeah.
helping sort through and keep me organized and
No, no,
really dial into what has worked and what hasn't.
it's helpful for me. And sometimes, like, I'll watch either one of your videos or my videos will pop up on my For You page. I'm like, I need to see this right now. Like, I didn't do what I told everybody online to do. So it's just like a reminder of like what I have to do, you know.
Yeah.
And so we're talking about ADHD and relationships today, right? And then we're gonna talk about the Valentine's Day thing and all that extra pressure,
Yes.
And I know people here in the comments have a lot of questions, but normally when I start the show, I go on like just a little rant where I'm just sharing my thoughts, and then I check out the questions. But when it comes to ADHD and relationships, what are some of the things that first rate couples and the things that people should be mindful of?
So ADHD, first and foremost, I mean, everybody just equates that to a focus thing. And
Right.
ADHD is so much more than that. It encompasses every aspect of your life. It impacts your focus, it impacts your emotional regulation, it impacts how you process things, it impacts how you deal with other people and interact with other people.
Mhm.
So it is something that, needs to be taken into account when you're entering a relationship and you're
Yeah.
becoming vulnerable and
Yeah.
entering a more intimate situation with another person. It becomes really important that you know how to not only manage your symptoms internally, but also how to explain that to your partner or
Right.
to have a way of communicating with them um, about symptomology and about ways that they can help and assist you. Because sometimes the partner is understanding,
Right.
but the way that they communicate back that information is just not what your brain's ready to hear. So
Right.
it's important to like learn how to communicate. So some of the like I've already forgotten the question. What was the question?
Oh, the question. Oh, this is a safe space. We get to be ourselves. But you answered the question, or you were on the right path. What are some of the common things to look out for? For people who have ADHD who go into relationships. Like assuming like you're
Yeah.
diagnosed and and you're single, then you enter into a relationship. like what should you like let your partner like know about you?
Okay. So things you should look out for. And I think the things that are, I mean, there's a whole slew of things, but things that are typically common are things like emotional dysregulation, like having to control how you deal with, because I mean, if people have been in a relationship or thinking about getting in a relationship, um, it's you are becoming closer to another person, and the great
Right,
thing about that is you get to share a lot with them, but you also share like you have to manage who you are and how you
right,
present as well. And it's like this steady kind of increase in faith and trust as you start exposing more of yourself. So
yeah,
learning how to manage those emotional ups and downs. And then a big thing that we need to talk about in relationships is the concept of rejection sensitive dysphoria.
mhm,
And for people who don't know what that is, it is the concept of a very, it can be a physical, it can be an emotional, it can be a mental kind of response to real or perceived criticism or rejection. And I mean, in relationships, you're dealing with that all the time anyway.
right,
Um, so it's kind of a minefield. So for me, situations that I've been in before is when I've been in those kind of situations, what I've seen is like my partner will say something and immediately, instead of like actually understanding like what were they trying to say?
right,
What like what are the facts behind it? Instead, I'm just like, they think I'm dumb. This isn't gonna work. What is
mhm,
my exit plan? Like, and
right,
it's
right,
just so it's like this very urgent kind of thing. And then like I will spin out of control. And then like 2 hours later, I might be like, that's unreasonable. What is
right,
wrong with me? But in the moment, I have convinced myself so fully, like that they think that I am dumb. They think that I'm not worthwhile to deal with it. And it's very, for me, I feel it very physically. I feel like someone is like pushing on my chest.
right,
That's what I feel like.
right.
Yeah.
Pushing me away, yeah. No,
Yeah.
and I'm happy you speak about that because you know, it like hurt is one thing, but like hurt that you hold on to, and I mean, you might stay on that thought, that hurt, persevere on it, and before you know it, like that one small thing has become this big thing, and it might lead into impulsivity. You know, you might,
Yeah.
like you said, the exit plan. Like I had a good friend of mine who had ADHD, and he told me that he was on his third marriage, believe it or not, and that was
Mhm.
the first time, like that wife. He's still with her today. They've been together for over 10 years. He said that wife was the first time that he could have an argument with somebody, and he wasn't afraid that they were going to break up afterwards. So that
Mhm.
exit plan thing, I think is real. Like you have an argument, and like you're already starting to think, okay, like this person hates me. Who's going to get the kids? Like how are we going to break up? Or if it's not to
How do
that,
I start over?
right? Like, how do I start over? Like, like, do we have bank accounts together? Like, you're thinking
Yeah.
about a way to get out because you feel like that person has shown their true colors, and maybe they didn't even mean to hurt you. You know?
And it's sad and it's hard because I think it's difficult to explain.
Right,
Because what I'm feeling is so real and so painful and so I feel it so viscerally. And
right,
I'm like trying to explain that back to somebody. They might be like, what you always hear is like, that's ridiculous. That's not what I meant.
right.
Or you're overreacting. And it's just like, so the way that I've gotten to now when I'm explaining about that kind of phenomenon is that this is very neurochemical. What
Right.
is happening is that my body and my brain is perceiving a threat. And what happens with the threat is that you get this huge surge of adrenaline and you are responding very, very physically like
Mhm.
your body is in danger. And that's what my
Right,
brain is thinking. I am in danger. I need to figure out a way to get out of here.
right,
And so I think that once you get comfortable enough to kind of explain what is happening, it becomes a little bit easier if you can explain it almost like neurobiologically. Like, no,
right.
no, no, this isn't just a me thing. This is a brain thing that's happening. And so that's what I've found that's helpful.
No, I think that's great. And even looking here at the comments, people are saying identify the triggers, and I think all that is important. And when the other person doesn't have ADHD and they don't get it, you know,
Yeah.
it becomes very difficult to have to like explain yourself to somebody. And I think the cool thing about the short form videos now is
Yeah.
that it takes like 7 to 12 seconds, right? Sometimes longer, 30 seconds, but you can send somebody a video and say, hey,
Yeah.
this is how I feel. We never could
Yeah.
do that before. You can send somebody a reel and say, hey, this is how I felt when we had the argument yesterday. And that could be the thing that helps, two people come together and then reconcile and say, oh, wow, I didn't know that you felt this way. Or if somebody has a certain insecurity, and even if
Yeah.
you
It's
think it's a silly
wonderful.
thing, you're like, all right, okay, this thing is a big thing to them. So I'm going to like lay off or chill out.
Yeah.
And when it comes to ADHD during this time of the year, like what's the first thing that comes to mind? Because you have Valentine's Day, and this is the social media day and age where you know you go on Instagram, it's couples everywhere, right? You go on TikTok, is cute couples, all this extravagant stuff. So for the person who has ADHD who may not be in a relationship yet, like take me through some of the emotions that you think they might have.
So first and foremost, Valentine's Day is such a scam. I hate Valentine's Day. And I've hated I've hated it when I was single. I've hated it when I was in a relationship. When I was single, I was like, this is a nightmare. When I was in a relationship or have been in a relationship, I am just like, this is like all I do is compare myself with other relationships and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. So I think what's important is
Mm-hmm.
recognizing that having realistic expectations and staying in the moment is important. Valentine's Day is just a made up dumb day. Like it's it's not a
I
real
love
thing.
that.
It's not a litmus test of your relationship. It's not. It's staying
I love
present in
that.
the moment. And what I have started to do and has been helpful is instead of doing gifts and things like that, I have pivoted to doing more like experiences or memories or cooking
I
each
like
other
that.
dinner or like things that
Mm-hmm.
there's no monetary value or like
Right.
something because like why why are we doing this? Why
Mm-hmm.
like it's like a random Tuesday, like no. Um,
Exactly.
so so I think what's important is being able for people with ADHD, their brains move so fast, constantly, all the time, all the time, all the time. And one of the things that we see with the ADHD brain is that it thrives on this level of competition as well.
Mhm.
So even
Yeah.
if you're not recognizing it, you're always like, I need to do this. I need to
Right.
look better. I need to do like I need my relationship needs to look as good as these things. So it's an internal kind of thing because moving towards goals is actually very dopamine releasing. You're getting a huge chemical rush
Mhm.
from that as you kind of progress up. Um, so I think that it's very normal to feel like you want to kind of throw your hat in the ring and show everybody like all this great stuff when maybe that's not, I've had patients and I've had friends and I've done this myself where like social media is also kind of not real. So like
Right.
you post this stuff making like looking like your life is totally perfect when really it's like
Mhm.
no, this is the farthest from the truth and it just is a
Right.
pretty picture and it makes people think otherwise.
Yeah. And I'm happy that you said, and yes, everybody who's saying that, can we record this combo? Everything is recorded. This would be available for playback on Twitch, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. So this is not going anywhere. So it's gonna stay. So if you have to go to bed, you're on the East Coast, it's still gonna be there. But for those of y'all who are still in, this is my last question for Dr. Hamdani. So you all prepare your questions so she can answer them. But I just want to say I'm happy so that you don't like Valentine's Day because there's
Don't.
nothing wrong with being romantic, but it's become like so transactional. It's like,
Yeah.
what did you get me? When am I going to get you? And it becomes something like a chore. Like it's like a checklist type of thing. I need to do this, blah blah blah, instead of like connecting the dots and using that day as another day to love on your person. But it's more so,
Yeah.
oh, what did you do for me, or how much did this cost, or where are you taking me? And it's so much, and even for somebody without ADHD, I just think it's become so commercialized. You go to these restaurants on Valentine's Day, like the lines are long, it's full. People have still bought into this notion that if I don't do something for my person on the 14th, I'm a bad person. You know?
Mm.
And then if you think things are transactional and you have ADHD, then you might think that the person doesn't really like you, and then you're
Yes.
hurt. And I've had that feeling like multiple, like I still have that from time to time. So I'm like, what's going on here? Like I'm not sure. It just feels like contrived. Like this is not authentic. And then when the ADHD brain senses that, they're like, all right, I've marked you as a person to watch out for. I can't let you.
Goodbye.
I can't let you in my safe space. So I really really like that. And looking through the comments. Oh, wow. Elisa says, I just want the sex. Respect, respect. Another way to get into
That's
debt.
fair.
Another way to get to debt. Oh, yeah. The video will be recorded. I have a question for you while people are dropping the questions. What would you say is something that is a positive about Valentine's Day for those of us with ADHD?
I really hate Valentine's Day. So
Right.
I really hate it. But if we were to look at some of the upsides of a day that celebrates the union of a relationship or many relationships, I think it's focusing on the people you're around. Like, I think that's just a reminder of like what you're thankful for and who's around you. And like, what I'm going to teach my kid is like, your Valentine doesn't need to be a romantic thing.
Okay, I
It
like that.
doesn't need to be romantic. Your Valentine can be somebody that you're thankful for and that you are appreciative of. And like, your teacher can be your Valentine. I hope to God that his mom and her mom will be her Valentine forever. Like, I want that to be like, I can't sway big Valentine Day. but I think that if we kind of pivot from this is just a romantic kind of holiday to just this is a holiday to celebrate the people around you, I can get on board with.
Okay, I like that. And I think
Yeah.
I see a good question here. Oh, wow. My struggle is how to find love and community when my traits get in the way of building relationships. These relationships feel so hard to be in. What are some ways to call your people and to see your struggles so they can understand a bit more about why some things are hard or impossible for you? So it looks like it's hard for her to develop a relationship and find love because of her traits. So I guess in a sense she's asking how does she not allow her ADHD to get in the way of finding love?
Yeah, I understand that. I
Ooh.
completely understand that. And I understand that for two reasons. One, or at least a pattern that I've seen personally, that when I was younger, yeah, um, as I was kind of going through this process myself, I feel like I would get very hyper fixated on somebody and I would very quickly want to become close to them and I would latch on and I would really enjoy that beginning part of the relationship. And I would either ignore a lot of red flags or I just wouldn't give enough time to kind of let the relationship build and grow. And
Mhm.
then the issue was either I would be like, oh, like 2 months down the line, I'm like, this is no, no, no,
Right.
no. Or it would be, I'm bored with this now. I'm not getting
Mhm.
the same chemical rush. This is settled into routine. I'm out of here.
Mhm.
So I feel like my traits were very strongly getting in the way of that. One of the things that I think is important is understanding how your brain works and how your brain kind of speeds up or slows down a timeline arbitrarily. Like and no, that's incorrect. It's not arbitrarily. You're chasing dopamine. You're
Right.
chasing what you feel like your brain needs.
Mhm.
So for people that are afraid of not finding love because they fall into this pattern of just kind of picking the wrong people, it might require slowing down a relationship so you actually have time to kind of develop those skills and
Mhm.
develop that the ability to like recognize if there's a red flag and if this is something you can work around and actually slowly cultivate a relationship so you're not getting bored.
Mhm.
Or if you feel like your traits are getting you to the spot where you can't even get to that spot because you're pushing people away, which happens as well because of rejection sensitivity or things like that, it might be one of those things where you find a different way to enter a relationship, enter a platonic relationship, find a friendship, like build a friendship, build something
Right.
like that and see if something comes out of it. So it might just be one of those, it might just be learning what your patterns are previously.
Right. And I think I think you mentioned on a previous live with I think your relationship and the long distance nature of it in the beginning as a protective factor. And I'm not the
Mhm.
biggest fan of long distance relationships, but in a sense, it offers that protection. Uh, because it's hard. Like, let's say you meet somebody and they live in your city, right? You can get to them in 30 minutes or whatever. Like, it's hard to not want to see them all the time when they have become your, hyper fixation. Like, that's what you hyper focus on. And then after you settle into a routine, you're like, I didn't sign up for this, right? But then
Yeah.
like you're already kind of close with them, and you're like, all right, when should we break up? But I don't have anybody else. I might as well kind of stick, hang around, and you're stuck in this cycle. Whereas like if it's long distance or whatever, or there's something that prevents you from seeing them, whether you're busy or something, it kind of like saves you from yourself in a sense.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think that out of all of my relationships, the because my husband and I were in a long distance relationship, it is the only reason that we survived. I think that I would have
Wow.
hyper fixated and I wouldn't, or like I would have hit a bump in the road and immediately just like kind of run for the hills because it was too hard. But I think that we had 3 years over residency to build a relationship, and I couldn't just pick fights or get bored or do other things that normally my trajectory has been.
Oh,
So
okay.
I recognized about halfway through, I'm like, why is this going so well? And I was like,
Right.
oh, because I'm actually getting to know him and I've actually gotten a chance to like spend good time
Mm.
and and really get to know him as a person and like talk to him on the phone every day before bed and like stuff like that. I think I've never really given myself that opportunity.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It, there's something to be said about that. I might have to look into that ADHD and long distance relationships. Wow.
They I
Yeah.
mean, I guess they don't necessarily work for everybody, but I mean,
Right.
the context that I was in is I was in such a busy residency that I was busy all the time, all the
Right.
time. I was on call every 3 days. And so I really didn't have the kind of time to like have a relationship with like somebody in town because I probably wouldn't have made time for them. So
Right.
this was kind of perfect and like yeah, someone said that it you learn how to truly communicate. It was true. I
Yeah.
learned how to actually talk and resolve conflict. And I think that was really important because I've never actually figured that out with anyone I've dated before.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I think that's great. And like I think I mentioned on the earlier live, when like you're in a rush for dopamine and you meet somebody and you like them, there's not gonna be that tendency to communicate and have regular conversations. Like you're gonna go straight
yeah,
for grand gestures, and before you know it, you're gonna hook up and do the Mickey Ficky and have a good time, and overlook the red flags, and then
yeah,
you might be stuck in something that you signed up for, but you didn't read the fine print. You're like you read it, but you just kind of overlooked it. You know.
yeah.
And somebody asked earlier that they had asked, how do they tell their person or somebody that they're interested in that they have ADHD?
That's really personal. I mean, and
It is
honestly, I
personal.
don't think necessarily you have to disclose that right away at all. I don't.
Right.
I think when I have disclosed in the past, and what I typically suggest to patients that I'm seeing or things like that is if it's becoming problematic in your relationship, and if you think that it would help your partner kind of understand you better and understand that okay, there is a reason for this kind of behavior that's bigger than just like I forgot. I just sorry I stood you up. It's like I
Mhm.
totally forgot. So I think that if you are looking because ADHD is not an excuse. It's an
Right.
explanation. So
Right.
that
Oh, I
is
like that.
what, yeah,
I like that.
it's what you are trying to explain your brain better that way. Um, so I think that you decide when that is appropriate in a relationship. And I mean, you don't even have to use the words. You don't have to like if what's stopping you is the term ADHD and you're like, I don't think they're gonna like really like that term or things like that.
Mhm.
I mean, just explain how your brain works. It doesn't, and
Right.
I have the same kind of recommendations for work and things like that. You don't have to
Yeah.
say, I have ADHD, so you need to treat me differently. No, you can say things like, well, this is how my brain works. And so this is why sometimes I have difficulty with this. And,
I like
explaining
that.
from that point of view sometimes helps and
Right.
helps your partner gain understanding. But it's personal about when you disclose it. You don't even have to use ADHD like that term. If that term is scary to you, don't use it.
Yeah. And I like that. And I think it's even better to explain it than to say ADHD because when you say ADHD, you leave it up to interpretation for what that person thinks ADHD is. So
Yeah.
they're probably just thinking they're just forgetful and clumsy, but like you might not even, you might be more hyperactive, like you
Yeah.
might be really organized. So there's no telling. And somebody asked, can relationships with busy careers be good for those of us with ADHD? That's coming from Alicia.
Yeah. I
Hmm.
think so. I don't know. It could go either way. It really depends on who the person is. Sorry, I'm eating hot tamales.
Oh yeah, no, get comfortable. Mhm.
It depends on who the person is, and it depends on how your brain works. For me, I think that I need to stay kind of busy and I need to be doing a bunch of things because
Mhm.
that is what maintains my mood. I think if I'm not doing enough, I feel very idle and then I just kind of ruminate and feel stuck and then I start thinking about stuff that I shouldn't be thinking about and I'm just like, why am I not doing this? Why, it's just so I staying busy and doing 100 million different things, I think caters to certain people's personalities and lifestyles, and other people it doesn't. So it's personality dependent. I don't think it has to do with ADHD.
And that's interesting because my answer is right on point with yours. Like I maybe it's ADHD, maybe it's my personality, but I have to be like I'm doing all these things on social media, but like I have to do that because like I enjoy it. And if you take me away from that, then like the relationship won't work. Like I have to exert my energy doing all these different
Yeah,
things. And over time, like you learn to condense it and figure out where to go, but like I have to do these things, and the downside to that on my end is sometimes you burnt yourself out for the day, and then you leave nothing for your partner. So
yeah,
I think that's something that I commonly run into. But I have to like fulfill these things to like be like joyful and happy and content.
yeah,
So I have to be busy in a sense, but nobody is too busy to where you can't take up a random Tuesday or something like that and go to the park and do something for your person, whether it's Valentine's Day or not. So I do acknowledge that, but I don't like being like I'd rather be too busy than to be too bored
totally.
by
Well, we
far.
gotta just find you another busy person.
Right, right. No, I've thought about that because I remember telling um my ex, I mean she was understanding, so she was good with it anyway. But I was like, and even Patrice O'Neill, the comedian, he has a bit about this where he says that men just want like a lady to be like in the vents or like somewhere in the area, like breathing our air. And of course, like they can be like up on this, but like we just want you there, just like breathing and like eat the food in the kitchen or something. But just be there, like don't go, just be there. But like I have to be like here, like, and I'm not saying anything, but like I'll have my pen and I'll be thinking about my next skit where I'm like, what should I do or what should I wear? Like I'll be deep in thought. I just have to. I just need time to like think. You
Yeah.
know, I need time to
Yeah, and
think.
I think finding in order to truly be actually that's probably a misstatement, but like for me, I found like to be happy in a relationship, I had to understand who I was first, and I need to understand what makes me happy and what makes me tick
Right.
and feel try to find a way to make myself as complete as possible because I was looking to other people to fill those spots.
Mhm.
And no person is going to be able to 100% do that. Like, that's just insane to expect someone else to be responsible for your happiness. So like,
Right.
I know now that I just have to be very busy. I'm busy, like my brain is busy, so I stay
Yeah.
busy to accommodate. And I think it's wonderful when you can find a partner who supports that, um, instead of discourages it.
Yeah, I like that. It leads me to this question here from Kelly. It says, it was up there earlier. At what point do we embrace ADHD? I guess she's asking, how do you prevent the ADHD from like being something that makes you sabotage your own relationship?
Yeah. Like if we're giving the example of the busyness kind of thing, I
Hmm.
think that's why communication is so vital, because
Right.
it's going to change. So the behavior is going to be the same, but the intention behind it from what your partner is interpreting is completely different. So if your
Hmm.
partner is like, you are not making time for me, you are so busy, you have 100 million other things to do that are more important than me, they're going to leave. They're going to be resentful. It's just not going to work.
Right.
If they have the understanding, like, you're busy because you need to do that for your brain so that you can be present for our relationship, then
Mhm.
that's completely reframed in a different way.
Right.
So I think it's a matter of just learning how to talk and bring that up in a way that's not going to be upsetting.
No,
Upsetting, and
I
that's
like
going
that.
to fall on ears that are listening.
No, I like that. It's about the communication, because if you don't communicate, you could. And I'm not sure if you've spoken about this in your videos before, but like if you don't communicate, like, and you're just doing your thing, sometimes the accidental love bombing and then the pulling
Mhm.
back can appear to be like narcissistic.
Mhm.
Have you ever spoken about that in some of your videos or?
Well, I've talking about just like the intense crossover between numerous personality disorders. And that's why,
Right.
especially for women, we get misdiagnosed so frequently,
Mhm.
because it looks like everything else. But then when you look and amalgamate all the different symptoms at one place, you're just like, oh, okay, it's ADHD.
Mhm.
But I think that yeah, it can look like narcissism. It can look like, even if you're not going as far as that extreme of calling it a personality disorder, it can
Right.
just look like that behavior is extremely self-centered and egotistical, and just like that you're only in there to care about your own self needs
Right.
versus care about a partner, when really that's not what it is. You're just like completely oblivious of other stuff.
Exactly. And real quick, you talked about the misdiagnosis, and I posted a video on TikTok to get people to come over here. And somebody asked a question. We need to talk about ADHD in women and how hormone levels impact it in our medicine. Medicine doesn't work. I'm in a complete fog a couple days before my period, and the first 2 days when I start. You have to accept it and plan your life around it. What would you say about the hormonal fluctuations and the ADHD symptoms in women?
Okay. It's a really easy way of describing this. So the brain, ADHD brain,
Mhm.
craves dopamine, wants dopamine. Estrogen increases, like, it works with dopamine. So when you have more estrogen, you have more dopamine, you're happy. With your period, what happens is that it's broken into two different parts. Um, the first part, as you're building up towards your period, you're doing okay. Like, you're feeling pretty good, and then you hit that span before your period, and you're just like, oh, it's almost like the rug got pulled out from under you. And what's happening is that your estrogen is dropping, your progesterone is raising, and so you aren't receiving all of that good neurochemical dopamine, because the progesterone is just muddying up the picture. So there are two things that are happening. One, because of ADHD, your PMS symptoms could be getting worse. Two, your focus is objectively worse. And three, your medications might not be working as well. So it's like this perfect storm of garbage.
Right. And what would you tell somebody once they realize that's going on? Like, how would they have that conversation with their doctor, or at least maybe with their spouse or their person to feel accepted?
Do that. Explain that. Or tell your doctor, like, I've noticed, like, what's really helpful for a physician is when you get timeline. Like, I have tracked this. I have figured
Mhm.
out this is the period when my symptoms are the absolute worst.
Worst.
And then
Yeah.
sometimes you can either modify with medication, you can modify with behavioral change, you can modify with like figuring out your caffeine intake. So it just kind of depends on what is appropriate for you. But for people that are listening, if you're talking to your spouse, you can be like, this is real. There are papers on this. Like, this is a well documented phenomenon. Just because I think it is helpful to understand that there is a very strong correlation with hormonal things in ADHD.
That's great. We're definitely gonna have to like clip that out and have my team clip that and post that like as a Facebook reel to because somebody was like, "Thank you so much. I feel like I'm not alone," so that they can get that validation. Ooh, Alicia has a good question right here. How do you stay interested in the person and not just treat them like another hyperfixation? Ooh, I want to hear your thoughts on that, but I have something to say about that.
You start then. I've been talking
Oh,
this whole time.
so what I have to say to that is it's gonna be hard to be interested in somebody if you didn't really like them. Sometimes you don't know if you like them or not, right? And
There's
like you're
not enough
hanging out with
time.
them, maybe it's by proximity or whatever the case is, but like you're hanging out with them and that's the person you've been spending like every day with for the past 2.5 weeks. So like you all have done things and you've shared moments, so you think you like them, but after a while it becomes apparent that you might not like the person. And I just think it becomes embarrassing to explain to somebody, I don't know how deep you've gotten, if you've met their people or their best friends, or like if you have all your clothes at their place or whatever the case is, but it's embarrassing to explain to somebody, um, I don't like you. And sometimes I just don't think people like you, like maybe you had a sexual attraction to them for a little bit, or maybe your intention was to just hook up or something, but you probably didn't like that person,
Yeah.
So it's hard to force interest in the person. You either like the person or you don't. And if you have to question whether you like the person, then I'm not sure if you like them. Because like think about the times when you really like somebody and they like you back, like you like the person. It wasn't like you were playing the guessing game. Like that was your person, you liked them. So I think it becomes embarrassing, uh, and it's important to create a safe space for people to talk about it, because I tell people all the time, like get a dog or something like that. Like it sucks when like you feel like you're messing with people's emotions and you didn't mean to
Yeah.
do it. So those are my thoughts on it.
I love that. I feel like it's so nuanced and difficult to
Right.
kind of make that distinction because like in your brain chemically it's all the same, right? You if you really like someone, you're getting a rush of dopamine. If you're hyper fixated on them, you're getting a rush of dopamine. So how do you
Mhm.
tell? And I think how you tell is recognizing your patterns. And if you recognize your patterns and understand like for me, what I was talking about, I jump in quickly because I have this like undescribable urge that I need to be close to literally everyone I meet. Like I have to launch myself into their lives. So I, that you've been to my house already.
Yeah. No,
But my dad,
like when I met you, I felt like you were like your online persona matched who you were. I was like, she's a great person to be around. Your family was nice and like warm, and like I had a great time hanging out with you. I felt like it was natural. It
yeah,
didn't feel like it was um because I'm in LA. I mean, LA is the land of the influencers. Sometimes you meet people and it's I hate to say it's kind of disappointing because they're not like what you thought they were, and you're like, okay, like like I've met people and I've thought to myself, I probably won't hang out with them again.
yeah.
But that was the case with you. Like I felt very accepted, and like I love being at your place. It was awesome. It
Well,
was
what I was
dope.
saying is like, so it's hard. When you have that chemical response and you're like, I can't tell whether it's hyperfixation. So with my habits,
Right.
I recognize that I jump in quickly. So I also recognize that it's important for me to pump the brakes, and that's why a long distance relationship
True.
was so important. And I think for a lot of people who fall into that similar pattern, if you pump the brakes, if you recognize like I jump in quickly, I need to take time. Your brain might be telling you you need to hang out with this person, otherwise they're going to think you're not interested. No, I think
Oh.
if you're like I just need to slow down, I need to take time to think about it and explain it to your partner like I've jumped in quickly before. I really want to enjoy this process can help you actually rationally process each step. And then that way, it's not this like forever thing. You're going to know after a period of time whether you like the person or don't.
Right. I agree. And that leads me to another question here that Leisha is putting. It's a really good question. And I like it. I mean, you're married, so you probably have nailed this one much better than me. But the question is, how do you tell if it's just a crush or you actually love the person? And this is not liking, like, do I like this person? This is love. Like, she used the L word, LOVE. Sometimes I feel that he boosts up some of the traits that makes me feel more alive, but my head sabotage. So it looks like she's talking to somebody who she thinks that he boosts her up, but she thinks that her head is. She thinks that she's sabotaging the relationship, but she's not sure if it's a crush or if she loves a person. And like, I mean, if you can answer that question and put the answer in the pill, like you'd be a billionaire.
I mean, I wish I could. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how love works. Love is crazy. Love is
Right.
crazy, and love is just like so incredibly like when you look at the neurochemistry of love, the areas of the brain that light up are so multifaceted. I mean, it lights up almost every different area of the brain in a different way. So they're all different neural connections that are firing. What I will tell you is that I think once you I think one of the biggest things that is a tip over from like a crush or infatuation to love is maybe the reciprocal trust and the and what you are gaining from the other, because I can tell you I've had about 10,000 crushes in my life. I mean, I crush constantly. And like it's hard because initially you're just like, I really like this person, and if they throw you a little bit of interest your way, you are
Right.
all in, and so it becomes difficult. But I think as you allow your relationship to grow, and if you are being good at kind of pumping the brakes and doing what you need to be doing, you can also start to recognize, once you start to recognize your own patterns, you have the time to recognize their patterns as well. And if you see that there is this mutual trust and this mutual vulnerability and you guys are growing together, neurochemically you guys become more in sync, and then it becomes just harder and harder to be without them.
Right. And I will piggyback off of that. And as a guy, I don't think, as guys, I don't think we speak about our feelings as much as women do. So I probably speak for a lot of guys, including myself, when I say that it's the vulnerability aspect. Like if you're more vulnerable with somebody, or at least for me, or if I'm able to be vulnerable with that person, then I'm starting to think that, okay, like this is probably headed somewhere.
Yeah.
Like that's the best way to tell, like, this woman from that woman, like they all look good, what to do, who to pick. But if you can talk to somebody and feel like you're not being judged and you're being accepted, then you sit
Yeah.
down there and you think like, wow, like I think this, like I feel comfortable here, I feel safe, and that's a very heartwarming feeling, I'd say.
And it's I think, since we are talking about Valentine's Day, which is still
Mhm.
stupid, but like the concept of love behind it. I mean, I hate Valentine's Day, but I love love. I love all sorts of love.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, I love love
I
between,
agree.
partners. I love love between like parents. I love love between pets. I love all sorts of love. So I think that if for people who are in the audience that have ADHD that are worried about never attaining that, it is very attainable. Like that, you can do that. ADHD is not going to, like, it may have gotten in the way of it before, but it is an attainable thing. Just because you have that diagnosis doesn't mean you're incapable of finding love, of sustaining love, of growing and nourishing love.
Yeah, I think it's great that you said that, because a lot of people, when they find out, sometimes people think it's like a death sentence, like, oh, I have ADHD, I'm done, like that's it.
Mhm.
And that's not the case. Like, we have, and we're thriving. Just have to know how to navigate, and your environment will probably be a little bit different from the neurotypical person, but there's still the opportunity to love, to be loved, to thrive, and to be supported by other people.
Mhm.
The last question here. This is a really good question, because I know some people who are watching are probably watching to support their partners with ADHD. Someone says, "Do you have any advice?" This comes from Hannah, for the non-ADD partner spouse to help their undiagnosed ADHD partner seek professional help or guidance. I'm trying to be understanding of how his brain works and why he does what he does, but I do not feel like that understanding is reciprocal. He does not realize how his ADHD is affecting me and our relationship. Ooh, that's a good question.
That's a really good question. I
Ooh.
think, Hannah, the first question that you need to ask yourself is, does he recognize it as a problem? Because
Ooh.
if he internally doesn't recognize that as a problem, he's never going to feel that um, motivation to fix it. So he's going to be like, this is your problem, you're interpreting this,
Right.
but this isn't a me thing. And so I think what becomes really tricky is that, you don't want to be the partner that's like, this is all you, this is your fault, this is like, these are the symptoms that are incorrect, right?
Right.
And what you have to do is you have to kind of learn and nourish and educate and help and guide your partner through this process. But if, to be totally honest with you, if they're not ready for that, or worse, not necessarily worse, but like, or more tricky, if they're like, no, I've thought about it and I definitely don't have it, then that's going to be kind of an uphill battle, because you're recognizing symptoms, they're not. And so they're probably not going to take the steps that are needed to
Yeah.
to fix, or to at least try to get some help in that arena. So I mean, trying to see what his readiness and what his idea and knowledge of ADHD is going to be really important, because like, you can control yourself, you can't control somebody else, which is horrible. I wish I could.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's hard to gauge somebody's willingness to go get help, especially if they don't think that it's a problem. So until that can be fixed, there's nothing you can really do. And also, if that person doesn't think it's a problem, and you throw out the term ADHD, then they think that you are saying that they're crazy. You're like, like, I'm not crazy. Like, are you trying to send me to a crazy house, or you want to make me take a pill? So a person will go on the defensive if they don't think it's a problem. So I love the way you answered that question. That was awesome. Yeah. So I want to say thank you so much for your time. I know it's getting late out there in Kansas City. And thank you so much. And I'm happy
Mhm.
that you've got to get on. I'd love to get you on Facebook yourself. I know you're busy, but anytime you
I
can.
kind of am. I just, nothing's happening with it. I have to talk to you more about that.
Oh yeah. I'll talk to you off air about it. But I love it. The engagement here is amazing, and the ideas I
This
get
is
from
so
the.
great. I never even knew that people had this kind of live stuff on here. I've never seen that, but I didn't even
I
know
had
Facebook had it.
I had no idea. I had no idea. Literally, I like, even my assistant, like, I had Facebook, like, because we all had Facebook profiles, but I had like my public page, and my assistant would upload videos, and then like I started getting a following, and I learned more about it. Now I'm actually on Facebook, seeing what the people are saying, what they want to see, what they want to hear about, and this StreamYard thing is fantastic, because now, like, you can, and I still love TikTok. I'm not going anywhere, but with this one, like, you can clip it, like, it's there, it's gonna stay on the page. You can go back and easily watch it. People, like, have to go to bed, so they'll come back in the morning and they'll watch it. So it's such a neat thing, and I'm sure you can fit some time in there and figure out how this works. And, like, I have no problem showing you, but this has been like, I love this Facebook community, and people are like
Yeah,
vulnerable
you
here.
guys have been so
Yeah.
awesome. You guys have been so awesome. These questions have been so great.
Yeah, it's been great. It's a safe space. Like I said, the thing that we didn't have coming up. So
Mhm.
I'm just fortunate to be a part of it. And I see Cassandra left your social media there. Where can people find you on social media? CJ, I appreciate you. I'm gonna drop it here.
On social media is the Psych Doctor MD. You can also look up. I really think I am on Facebook. If you guys look on Facebook, see if you can find me. I might not be. I don't. I don't understand it. So Sasha Hamdani, MD, and the banner says the Psych Doctor MD. I friend me or follow me on there. I
Is
don't
it
even know what I'm
the
doing on
Psych
there.
Doctor MD on, that's on IG and TikTok, right?
Uh huh.
IG and TikTok. and then we'll figure out that Facebook thing. I'll have to look you up and then figure out
Yeah,
how it works. But it was, I'm not gonna lie, it was very confusing to get it set up initially. But once I got the hang of it, I'm like, okay, this is cool. But in the beginning, I'm like, I don't get this at all. I don't get this at all. But
you
now
just
it's
need to help
cool.
me. Okay, well then I
Awesome.
thank you guys so much for having me. And then Dr. Kojo, I can't wait to talk to you on Sunday.
For sure. Oh yeah, we'll definitely talk on Sunday. On TikTok. So you all follow her on TikTok because we're gonna have a part 2 to this. Where I'm gonna be the guest on her channel. So I can't wait to be talking to her then.
Okay.
All right. Take
I'll see
care.
you guys. Bye.
All right, bye y'all.